Welcome! Today we're going to learn how to write a paragraph. A paragraph is a block of writing that is all about the same theme or subject. And there are many things that you can do to make a paragraph successful. And there are other things that you can do that can make your paragraph a muddled mess. And that's not good. So first, let's talk about the things that you should do. You want to make your first sentence your topic sentence. The topic sentence is the main idea. What will you be writing about? In different cultures, they write a little bit differently. They have different ideas of what makes good writing. But in the United States, the standard is to talk about what you're going to be writing from the very first sentence of your paragraph. And when we're talking about these paragraphs, we're talking about paragraphs for academic writing. If you're going to be writing a story, things are a little bit different. So the first sentence in your paragraph is the main idea. The second thing that you're going to do is you're going to provide support for the topic sentence, using details and examples for the middle sentences, and also explaining those examples. So we'll look at some sample paragraphs in a few minutes, but your first sentence in your paragraph will be your topic sentence that explains what your paragraph is about. And then the next several sentences will be details, explaining and giving details to further explain the topic sentence. Now, here's some other rules that are very important for writing. You want to make sure that you capitalize the first letter of every sentence. So you see how I have a capital C here, as opposed to a lowercase c here. Here we have a capital M as opposed to a lowercase m here. To make a capital M on your keyboard, you'll press the Shift button, and then you'll press the letter and release them both at the same time. And that makes a capital letter on your keyboard. The next thing that you need to make sure you do when writing is to write a period or a question mark or an exclamation point at the end of each sentence. You see here, all of my sentences are periods, but guess what? I forgot a period at the end of this sentence. Let's put it in there. That would be bad if I forgot to put the period. The next thing you want to do is, and this is very important, is make the last sentence of your paragraph a conclusion or transition to the next paragraph. So you want to make sure you wrap up everything that you talked about by kind of just saying, and this is why I said the first sentence. This is why I said the second sentence. Or, and now I'm going to talk, I just spoke about this, and now I will talk about a different subject. And one thing that you can do is use transition words throughout your paragraph, like first, which is like the number one thing you do. Second, that's the number two thing that you did. Third, later, then, after that, afterward, next. Those are good transition words. Words like finally, finally, a word that I just used. That's another transition word. These are some transition words that talk about the order of the steps in which you do things or you did things. Let's talk now about the things that you don't want to do. Don't write sentences that are not about the topic sentence. So if you're talking about your sister's birthday party, don't all of a sudden talk about some other random thing like your dog has 4 bones in the middle of that paragraph, because it won't make any sense. Don't forget to indent, which means leaving a little space on the first line, but only at the beginning of each paragraph. down below you see my example. That space right there is where I indented. When you indent, that means you leave 5 spaces if you're typing. So you hit the space bar 5 times. If you're writing, you put your finger right at the very beginning of the line, and then you start writing after your finger. You need a little bit of space. And if it's a very small child, well, maybe they will leave 2 fingers. But for most adults, they will leave 1 space of a finger before they start writing at the beginning of their paragraph. And then if you're typing, don't put more than 1 space between each word, like this, 2 spaces. See, the computer doesn't like it and it underlines it in red. We only want 1 space between each word. And if you're typing, don't put a space between the last word of the sentence and the period. The space comes after the period or other punctuation and not before. So let's take a look at this period. Don't put a space there. No, see how it underlines it? It doesn't like it. You need to put the space after the period. Some people write 2 spaces, but 1 space is enough. Let's take a look at our example paragraph. I love eating out. That's my topic sentence. You can tell that I'm going to be talking about how I love to eat out. Eating out in America means eating in a restaurant. Sometimes it can mean eating fast food and eating it at home, but eating out usually means buying your food from a restaurant. My favorite cuisine is Italian food. That's a detail. I'm talking about how I love eating out. Sometimes I go to the Olive Garden. That's a very popular restaurant in the United States. I also like to order the delicious pasta at the Cheesecake Factory. I love the bread from the Cheesecake Factory because it's tangy and fresh. The Olive Garden and the Cheesecake Factory are my 2 favorite restaurants, though I only eat at home now because of the pandemic. So here we have a paragraph where we start with our topic sentence and we end with my conclusion sentence where I talk about my 2 favorite restaurants to eat out at and also explain that right now I'm not eating out because of the COVID pandemic. Now here I have 3 sentences. You tell me which one is the right sentence to belong in this paragraph and where it should go. My mom loves tomatoes. I live in California, and the Olive Garden has good prices and delicious food. Well, my mom loves tomatoes. That doesn't have to do with the fact that I love to eat out, so let's get rid of it. I live in California. That has nothing to do with the fact that I love to eat out. But the Olive Garden has good prices and delicious food. That has to do with my paragraph. So I can stick that right here after I talk about the Olive Garden. Right after I say, sometimes I go to the Olive Garden. The Olive Garden has good prices and delicious food. And then I talk about another restaurant that I like to go to. All of these sentences have to do with me loving to eat out. Let's take another look at a different paragraph. Now, do you spot the very first problem in this paragraph? What's the problem? The problem is I forgot to indent. When I indent, I put 5 spaces before the first word. I can also use the tab key on my keyboard. So it says capital T-A-B on your keyboard, and it's right above the caps lock usually. Here we go. I'm going to put 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's start reading it. My first date with my husband was amazing. On our first date, my husband took me to a movie. It was a very romantic movie called Titanic. Afterward, we went to a wonderful restaurant and had the most incredible dinner. The service was slow, but we talked for hours. Later, when we finished eating, we went for a walk down the beach and took off our shoes as we walked through the gentle waves. Finally, he took me home. It was a very special night, and I knew right then that he was a great guy. When I walked in the door, I saw my favorite cousin sitting on the couch. Wait a second. Where did that sentence come from? When I walked in the door, I saw my favorite cousin sitting on the couch does not belong in that paragraph. So if I wanted to, and I was writing a long story, I could make that the next paragraph. I'll just press enter, and then I can either press tab, or I can put 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. We also have a few more problems in this paragraph. Did you spot this little area right here? In this area, you see that I have spaces between my word, the last word in the sentence, and my period. This space has to go after the punctuation. You see that with the comma. Oh, wait, sorry. You see that with the comma right here. I have the comma, which comes right after the word with no spaces in between, and then I have the space. Now here, you see a period, but there's a problem. The first word after my period, the first word of my sentence should always be capitalized, have a capital letter. So afterwards, we went to a wonderful restaurant. They want me to say a beautiful restaurant, but I'm going to say a wonderful restaurant because that's the word I want to use, and had the most incredible dinner. So now that sentence is fixed. I hope that helps you to write your paragraphs. Always remember to have an opening topic sentence and then a conclusion. Notice I ended my paragraph with the word finally. Finally means the last thing that happened. Finally, he took me home. Whoops, that's not the last sentence. That's the last sentence in the story with the details. But then here's my conclusion sentence. It was a very special night, and I knew then that he was a great guy. That talks about my first date. My first date was a very special night. So that's the conclusion sentence. I hope that this video has helped you to learn how to write paragraphs. Thank you and good luck.